flashes.
Okay, okay.
Okay, well, my name is Hal Shirtliff, and I'm up here in beautiful Dresden, Maine, on a wintry January 2015 afternoon with Charlotte Iserbyt. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. It's a little challenging.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Iserbyt.
I first met Charlotte in 1990. I had her address, and you were living in Bath, Maine, a little
That's
south
right.
of us.
Yeah.
And I just knocked on the door, had a beautiful Greek revival hall.
Yeah,
I
that's
believe
right. It was. Yeah.
And you invited me in like we were, and you talked to me like we were old friends. We knew each other for years. Yeah. And you mentioned a book. You asked me if I had ever heard of a book called America's Secret Establishment by Anthony Sutton.
Yeah.
And I said, every single John Birch Society member has a copy of this book, you know.
Good, I'm glad.
And in the foreword to the book, or the preface to the book, the author, the late Anthony Sutton, mentioned that he never believed in so-called conspiracy theories or conspiracies until an anonymous source delivered things to him.
Right.
And you said, I remember that you said, oh, you were that anonymous source.
Right.
So could you sort of kind of go into that a little bit?
Well, yes. What happened was in 1983 or so, I was taking care of my father, who was a member of the order, Yale, and my grandfather were too. And but that really, at that point, I wasn't even thinking about the order. But I was working with Anthony Sutton on some stuff because I was always interested in Soviet affairs, and Sutton had done this remarkable research. Hoover Institute, you know.
That was based in California.
Pardon?
The Hoover Institute.
The Hoover Institute, out of the Hoover Institute, and he ultimately, after having written several books on Wall Street and Hitler and Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution and Trilaterals over Washington, all these. After that, he wrote those books. Well, actually, after he left Hoover Institute, after he was relieved because he was getting too close to the truth, right? Yeah. Stanford. He wrote these other books, and so he was very interested. His whole career really had been involved in tracking, researching everywhere around the world, all the different government libraries and all. There's the story of U.S. funding of of Hitler and Stalin.
And the Stalin.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Lenin.
Yes, yeah. Lenin, Trotsky, and so Trotsky. So anyway, I was on the phone with Sutton occasionally, and he said to me one day, you know, he said, there's this order at Yale that I wonder about. He said, because it appears to be the only college that has this secret society in the world. He said he couldn't find any other. And he said, you know, is that possible? That could be. And I said, well, actually, yes. And I said my father and grandfather were members. And I said, it's very interesting that you should ask me that today, because the mailman had just brought this package with these books. And I was taking care of old Dad's personal affairs. This is my best friend.
That's why you see the blanket moving.
Yes, outside.
You're not imagining it.
She gets a lot of video coverage.
And she's a little bit of a ham, so
and she's very smart. And I do want to include her in the interviews because she's also ferocious. And if anybody wants to come and get me, but anyway, so that very day, a package had arrived, and I was taking care of old Dad's personal affairs too, because he was in the last stages of cancer, bone cancer, and he was in bed in the room next to where I was making all the phone calls, so he had to listen to all this stuff. Oh, poor thing, all the time he was ill as well. But the package came, and I looked, and there are 3 black books, and these are the lists of the members of the order ever since 1830.
That's when it was formed.
Yes. 1830 when it's formed, and then you have the catalog. The date on this one is May 1977, so I don't quite understand why he didn't receive it until.
And the reason why the pages are loose is because you've actually scanned it.
Oh yes, it's
scanned. And it
will
be available at some point online.
At some point.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah. We're just waiting.
Okay.
Until the appropriate time.
Good.
So anyway, this is the biggie, is all the names from 1833 on. And then this one is living members. This is up until 1977, so that's a while back.
And we're looking at, it's not a very thick book, so we're looking at how many, at any one given time, how many members are there usually?
Probably
500?
maybe 500 or
500.
so at any given time. And here they're deceased. That's very small, this one right there. And so I must say, I wasn't surprised. I took him into Dad and he said, oh, that's interesting. They never did that before. And so anyway, I gave them to him, and then I told Sutton that, and he said, would you mind lending them to me? I will get them back to you immediately. And he said, I understand that that's a difficult decision for you to make.
Yeah.
Because they are a family, that's a family thing. And I said, well, I'll lend them to you, yes, because I respected him enormously.
And when he looked into the members, it's sort of a who's who in America, the most prominent
Well, yes.
people.
The thing is that a lot of people have the names. You know, that they're up on the internet. But the important thing about this is that under the names you have, from, you know, a short one, probably someone that really didn't do terribly much, to long ones, like Avril Harriman, or, you know, I don't know.
Sloan Coffin,
You
William
know,
Buckley,
yeah, Buckley.
George,
Yes.
all the Bushes.
So the Bundy family, the Bushes, the Aldrich, you know, all, you know, tremendous number of.
John Kerry's in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and they have a lot. And this is what, he called me back and he said, okay, he said, I finally got the answer. He said the power behind all these organizations, Bilderberger, CFR, Trilateral, etc., is the order.
The order, yeah.
And that's where they get their orders, from the order. And you don't have to have many members of the order in the group, like say CFR, they could get along with just one. Or any of them get along with just one, but they have
one person transmitting the
the
orders, right? That's it.
The orders come
the orders
from
of the order.
The orders come from the order, and that is why we should all very, very concerned. I think that when Kerry was run against Bush, you know, up there. I always call the people on 135th floor, Rockefeller Center. They or off the islands, you know, certainly that would be where they'd be here in Maine, you know,
Right.
North Haven, Osprey, you know, you've got Watson and the whole crowd that control the world. So those people, they get their orders from the order. And I must say, so then Sutton, who's done all this remarkable research
Yeah, you
before,
mentioned one book that's probably the most important
yeah.
book you ever did, How the Order Controls Education.
yes, and
And
that,
this is still available, is it?
well, that's very, very
It's hard to
expensive.
get, yeah.
Wait a minute, but this, interesting enough, the chapter, this is in here.
Okay, yes, okay. Yeah.
This section is in here. This is a separate little book. So he said, after he'd finished all these other books and worked for Hoover and all, he started writing on the order, because he felt this was the most important thing the American people had to know.
Now, wasn't Sutton was supposed to give a speech at the Republican convention, was it 72 or 76, and he was uninvited because he was going to address how the United States has funded the Soviet Union?
You know what, that may be true.
Yeah, okay,
I don't know that. Chris Milligan may know it.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's Chris Milligan, who was the good friend of Tony Sutton's, that published, Trine Day is the name of the publisher, and he really knew him well.
Yes.
And
He lived to be in his 90s, too. He died, what, in the
late
late 90s?
he didn't. No, he lived.
No,
he,
Sutton.
no,
No.
he was a lot younger than that.
Oh, was he? I thought
Oh,
he was,
yeah,
okay.
and I've always felt it was let's not use a conspiracy
No,
word.
we can't say that, no.
Let's say it was a very unusual death,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
in that there was no reason for him to die.
Well, I know that he was being investigated during the Clinton administration,
Yeah.
some tax issues. There was some kind of, he had some tax problems.
Yeah, and he'd been having problems with the conservative movement for quite a while.
The so-called conservative movement.
Yes, but Chris Milligan is the one who's got Trine Day.
Flushing out this, and that
This
came
is-
out recently, right? That book
Oh,
came out
this is
recently.
about 10 years ago. And this is, here we got, can you see that? Okay.
Yep. And you have a chapter that you authored.
Yes, I have a chapter in here. I'll show you that. Fleshing Out Skull and Bones. And Chris also published the original book on the order here. This one, The American Secret Establishment. I think these two books are very, I mean, I have a hard time This one, of course, has this chapter in it, which I find the most important thing because they're going to take us through education, and I'm not the transformation of education to workforce training for the global economy.
Now, you said before we had the camera on that Common Core, which is something that a lot of people are concerned about recently, the last couple of
Right.
years, is not so new. You
Oh,
said,
no.
even though it was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation
Oh,
that
yeah,
funded
no,
this
it's the
recent,
funding of it.
but you said that Maine
Yes.
was the international
Oh,
testing
I
grounds.
saw that. I wish I could find that
1989,
document.
yeah.
I read this thing, and here Bettina and I, we had Guardians of Education for Maine, and we raised a lot of cane back in the 70s, and
Yeah.
we knocked out the stinking health education that called for seniors to understand the 3 types of sexual intercourse, including
Well,
with animals.
Now
Yeah.
it's down to elementary school
That's
level.
right, including with animals.
Yeah.
That's why I say to Common Core people, I'll give you $1,000 if you can come up with a better one than that. You think this is new? No,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
new. Actually, the whole I call it Communist Core. I've called it that right from the beginning. It all came out of UNESCO. It came out of my office in the Department of Ed, Office of Education. The most important office in the world was the office I was in.
And you were with during the Reagan administration.
During the Reagan administration, and I had access to everything. So anyway.
And you wrote you wrote a book on.
Well, I wrote this.
There we
This one is the original.
Back to Basics Reform.
That's the
or
original
Skinnerian
one there.
International Curriculum.
People can get that on the internet
It's on,
too.
it's on Amazon, and you probably have it scanned in on your
Yes,
website.
it's scanned in on my
What
website.
is your website too? So people
It's
can.
deliberatedumbingdown.com. The 3 words. Deliberate. That's the operative word. Deliberate. Dumbingdown.com. And I might point out that at that website you can get this big book, which is my original big baby. It's out of print now. That's a 700-page book.
And that's also available in a PDF download too.
That is available free at my website. And it's great because you can go in and you can go into the index, find what you want, get onto the page, and you can find exactly what then you just glue it with the part you want, copy it, then go to email, send it to your superintendent and say,
Wow.
wait a minute, you're lying. Look, give us the truth on this issue because it's loaded. These are all very, very important documents in this book. This book has been updated. It was originally published in 1999. It's out of print
I think
now.
you gave me a manuscript of it that was sort of like oversized, and it was kind of like a wavy.
Oh,
and,
good.
Yeah,
Well, you want to hold on to that.
I still have it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Hold on to that. So anyway, we have the updated abridged version, which is great, which covers 1999 to 2011. That's at Amazon. That's the only thing that is not free that I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's at Amazon, and you can get it, and it's marvelous because with a free download, whatever has been taken out of the abridged version, it's bold. It says 3 little bold D's.
Oh yeah.
That means go to the internet. You
Yeah.
can find out what you're looking for. Okay, so it works interactively. But the updated version is very important because it deals with tax-funded school choice, charter schools, unelected boards. It deals with a lot, UN Agenda 21, sustainable development. It deals with, I think the most important thing that we put in there was a recent information I found that connects the Carnegie Corporation, which it really is so involved in so much bad stuff going on, but Carnegie, which called for using the schools in 1934 to change America from a capitalist economic system to a
Socialist.
to a planned economy,
Planned economy.
and in some cases to take our land. That is in. I've got the little book out there. I'll get it for you. That is in a book that they wrote called Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies in 1934.
Now, didn't the Carnegie Foundation for International Peace have a meeting that was part of that the Reese Committee report?
Oh yes.
And
yes.
this was going
Right.
back to when it was first founded,
Right.
1913
Right.
or 14.
Right.
And they had advocated changing the system by rewriting the books.
Yes,
and
oh,
controlling
absolutely. Yes, well, they sent students over. I think it was Guggenheim that paid for that. Sent students over to England to get a completely new take on American history. And then they came back, and then you had these like John Dewey, a lot of communists, George
John
Counts.
Dewey was the the father of so-called progressive
Oh, yes,
education.
absolutely.
Is it like it's supposed to be a positive thing,
Yeah.
a good thing?
Oh, yeah.
And I recently reprinted the article that he wrote in 1898, basically saying you do not need a literate
Oh,
society.
yeah, no.
So we're not talking about Common
No,
Core,
that's
something that
right.
goes back many, many years
oh, yes.
ago. And,
No,
you know,
this is so, all the way from, but the point is that you have to give the American public school teachers credit, because for years they were under enormous pressure. Pre-1965, which was when the axe fell, when they put the Skinner method in. In 1965, everything turned to performance-based, see? Outcomes, performance, results. Now, think about it. That is what? Workforce training.
And you're just sort of learning to pass a test.
Has nothing to do with what goes on in the
goes on
head.
in the head,
It's Skinner.
Yeah.
It's Skinner. And that was 1965.
You get an attaboy, in other words.
Yes.
You get an
I mean,
attaboy.
I've got a document out of one of their leading journals, the first document written on performance-based teacher education. And it says right in there that they had to get that, they were using the minorities as an excuse for changing teacher education.
Yeah.
After a teacher in Maine gave me that incredible paper, that first paper, calling for performance-based education. Now, that was only what that was doing is carrying out Carnegie's plan in 1934, because performance is what you can do.
No,
See,
you
it's
think
how you
somebody-
can work, how you can manufacture something.
Yeah.
That's performance.
Right,
That's not what's going on in your head thinking.
right,
That's not upward mobility for your child.
right, exactly. Yeah.
So, so that was that system that Carnegie talked about in 1934 was basically the first nail in the coffin, and then the second nail was when under Lyndon Johnson, ESEA, 1965. Then you had John Ashbrook, who I dedicated my book to, Congressman John Ashbrook. That's an
From
incredible
Ohio.
statement.
From Ohio.
Yes, and he died mysteriously.
He died about
too.
the same time Larry McDonald died.
Very mysterious how
yeah.
John.
Just a little after.
Oh yeah.
He was running for the U.S. Senate.
Oh
I think,
yes,
too.
against Metzenbaum.
Yeah, yeah.
But getting back to take Carnegie for instance, people would say, what does he have to do with the order at Yale? Plenty. Carnegie Corporation. If you get into Sutton's book, How the Order Controls Education, you'll see it was all the way. It was Carnegie, it was Johns Hopkins, it was Yale, it was G. Stanley Hall going over to Leipzig, studying under Wilhelm Wundt.
Well, and then coming back to
Yes.
Clark University in
Yes.
Worcester, Massachusetts.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you had Thorndike, who was...
Can I
Kaplan's-
also
yeah.
mention Sam Blumenfeld wrote an incredible newsletter back in it.
Oh, yes.
And he basically talked about scientific racism
Yeah.
being brought here from England.
Absolutely.
And Clark University was sort of
Yes.
the headquarters for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
The-
And I think that
The IQ test.
yes,
Yeah.
these people are, it's all genetics, and that's why what they did was, that bothers me the most, is the first Skinner program, Direct Instruction Mastery Learning pilot, was out of Chicago in 1968. And that was Benjamin Bloom, very
University of
important.
Chicago. University of Chicago.
No, the schools, the public schools
Oh.
in Chicago.
And that's a taxonomy of education by Benjamin
Yes,
Bloom.
Bloom. And so Bloom went in there, Schulman went in there, who now, believe it or not, is heading up Catholic Common Core.
Oh, yes.
Did you know that?
Oh, I do know.
Schulman is heading up Catholic Common Core. Now, he's helping the Catholics with it. Look, Schulman and Bloom were responsible for half the inner city kids in Chicago dropping out
Wow.
in the freshman class. Now, instead of, I asked Chester Finn about this once. Chester Finn out of Vanderbilt University, neocon, all that, huh? I said, well, you know what? Hey, Chester, come on. Because he was the assistant secretary after I got myself fired. I said, what's going on here? How come he gets promoted to head up the Carnegie's professional teacher development certification thing out at Stanford after the disaster in Chicago? He's heading that up. That's all performance-based teaching and all. Okay. Then what happens? Ernest Boyer head of Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, dies.
Yeah.
Schulman gets that job.
Really?
Then Schulman leaves, and they've got this new Brick or whatever his name is, who's heading up Carnegie Foundation
Now,
for the
when
Advancement
did
of Teaching.
Schumann die? And
No, Boom died.
Well,
Then
I mean-
Ben Howard. What's the last one? The last one at Carnegie was what's his name? I just mentioned it. Boyer. Okay, and then I think it's Steve. Can we stop the taping for a
How do I
second?
stop it?
what's that?
How do I stop it?
Okay,
Press
if
it.
you just.